Structherm NSC2 Low-Rise External Wall Insulation System. Typical installation process and finishing options. Installation of these systems must be carried out by a Structherm approved installation contractor and in accordance with Structherm installation guides. Weather conditions should be monitored to ensure correct application and curing conditions. Application of coating materials must not be carried out at temperatures below 5 degrees Celsius or above 30 degrees Celsius, nor if exposure to frost is likely, and the coating must be protected from rapid drying. All rendering should be in accordance with the relevant recommendations of BSEN 139141-2005. To begin the installation, fit the system base trim to the required height, ensuring it is fitted level onto a flat substrate. The base trim is to be secured every 300 mm with appropriate fixings. Cut insulation boards to size using a handsaw, ensuring all cuts are straight. Install the first run of insulation boards onto the base trim, ensuring a tight fit with adjacent boards. Install fixings named in project specification, pre-drilling holes if required. Hammer fixing sleeves should be placed through the insulation into the wall and plastic or metal pin inserted, then hammered until fully installed. 5 fixings should be installed in a 5-dice pattern. Subsequent rows of insulation boards are positioned so that the vertical joints are staggered and overlap at the building corners. Ensure joints are butted tightly together, checking alignment as boarding progresses. Smaller slips of insulation may be required to allow for an L-shaped board over corners of windows and doors. To fit around windows and doors, insulation boards may be cut with a handsaw. Cut insulation boards may be required at eaves level. Insulation boards should be a minimum of 300 mm wide at all times. If gaps between insulation boards occur, these should be filled with foam and cut flush prior to rendering. Install the drip bead onto the base trim by clipping to the front. Base coat render is prepared by mixing the contents of each 25 kg bag of render with approximately 4 to 5 litres of cold, clean water, using a suitable drill with whisk attachment for at least 5 minutes after the addition of the last bag of render to allow for an even dispersion of the resins, then allowed to stand for at least 3 minutes, then remixed. This allows the chemical additive to dissolve and reactivate. At corners, window or door reveals, apply first layer of base coat render to a thickness of 3 mm using a stainless steel trowel. A notched trowel is used to ensure the correct thickness of base coat render is applied. Bed corner beads into the base coat render using a straight trowel. Apply the base coat render to the rest of the wall with a notched trowel at 3 mm thick. The glass fibre reinforcing mesh is embedded onto the wet base coat render and smoothed using a stainless steel trowel, ensuring the mesh overlaps the corner and base bead mesh by 100 mm. Subsequent layers of mesh are then installed, again ensuring mesh overlaps by a minimum of 100 mm. Extra reinforcing patches of glass fibre reinforcing mesh measuring 250 by 500 mm should be installed diagonally to all window and door corners. Allow 2 to 3 hours of drying time prior to second layer of base coat render being applied. The second layer of base coat render should now be applied, again to a thickness of 3 mm, right up to and around corners. Smooth off second layer of base coat render using a spatula or damp sponge. The application of an acrylic or silicone top coat begins with priming the dry base coat layer. Open the tub of primer and mix, then pour into a paint tray. Apply a uniform coat of primer using a roller, ensuring all base coat render is covered. Mix the top coat render using a hand trowel or using a suitable drill with a whisk attachment. Spread out the top coat render evenly over the surface using a stainless steel flat trowel and smooth float. Rub up to the required finish using a plastic trowel before a surface film has formed. Prepare the dash receiver by mixing the contents of each 25 kg bag with approximately 4 to 5 litres of cold, clean water using a drill and whisk attachment for at least 5 minutes. Allow to stand for a further 5 minutes and then remix. Apply the dash receiver onto a scratched base coat to a thickness of 6 mm using a stainless steel trowel. Before the dash receiver is cured, the dash aggregate should be washed to remove any dirt and mixed. It can then be applied using a harling trowel in a uniform and level application. To complete the finish, tamp the dash aggregate into the dash receiver with a clean trowel. Prepare the brick effect mortar by mixing the contents of each 25 kg bag with approximately 4 to 5 litres of cold, clean water using a drill and whisk attachment for at least 5 minutes. Allow to stand for a further 5 minutes and then remix. Apply the mortar coat onto dry base coat render to a thickness of 6 mm using a stainless steel trowel. Allow to dry for 2 to 3 hours. Mix the brick effect face coat in the same way as the mortar and then apply to a thickness of 2 to 3 mm. Texture the face coat to the required finish, for example stippled, brushed or floated, and leave to stiffen before cutting out. Mark out the horizontal mortar joints using a gauging tool. Cut out horizontal mortar joints to full width using a straight edge to expose the mortar coat underneath. Cut out vertical mortar joints using a straight edge or level. A brick size template or brick slip can be used to gauge the correct brick width. Once set, brush off any excess brick face layer to leave a clean finish. The application of an acrylic brick slip finish begins with priming the dry base coat layer. Open the tub of primer and mix, then pour into a paint tray. Apply a uniform coat of primer using a roller, ensuring all the base coat render is covered. Allow to dry for 2 to 3 hours. Apply the adhesive layer using a notched stainless steel trowel to a thickness of 4 mm, ensuring the grooves run vertically. Apply the acrylic brick slips to the required pattern, ensuring slips are level. Gently position each slip and bed into the adhesive. Ensure joints between slips are 10 to 12 mm wide. Allow to dry for 30 minutes to 1 hour. After allowing to dry, brush the adhesive smooth to create the mortar joints using a small paintbrush to complete the finish. The installation is now complete.